Yeah, so you have a question.
What is the relationship to Rudolf Steiner's foundation meditation and Tibetan Buddhism?
Oh, that's a good question I haven't thought of yet, but I will now. Rudolf Steiner's foundation stone meditation, as I've shared in a previous talk, is intimately related to Neoplatonism and the Hermetic tradition. The divine Pymander of Hermes Trismegistus, like thrice born, just like Dionysius is thrice born. And that relationship is this. The divine Pymander has the three heads. It has three heads of like basically Father, Son, Holy Spirit in their own terminology of deity and cosmos and world soul. And this is the same with Neoplatonism. They have this too. This deity or God, cosmos, world spirit. And then the fourth is when the human being realizes that they're composed of the three previous earth incarnations. We're in the fourth incarnation now, that we're composed of mineral, plant, animal, which are a gift of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, if you want to put it that way, of the Osiris, Isis, Horus, the Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. They're the gift. And that we're at the turning point of time because we've descended so far in matter that we can't hardly go any further than matter unless we endanger ourselves with becoming machines or animals. And so that there's this turning point of time, Rudolf Steiner calls it. Blavatsky calls it the turning point too, in that the descent of the spirit and soul can only go so far. There's this turning point where you reascend. So in the divine Pymander and in Neoplatonism, they have this meeting with the death, kind of the death or the ending of going deeper, and an ascent or resurrection body, an immortal body, arising to the gods. And so when it comes to the Rudolf Steiner's foundation stone meditation, which is the Father into the depths of the limbs and the Son in the heart rhythms and the Holy Spirit in spirit thinking, and then the fourth part is the warmth and purity of shepherds' hearts, of the heart, and the thinking, the light of thinking that is being redirected upwards. And it's a very interesting thing in foundation stone meditation. There's this descent of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit in the human being. And then there's a reascent, a renaissance, a resurrection and a raising of consciousness that is very similar to the regeneration and renewal and the ascent in the divine Pymander, the Hermetic tradition, and in the Neoplatonic tradition. I want to make that kind of clear. And then when we talk about Tibetan Buddhism, we have the Theravedic, or what they used to call the Hinayana, which is I have to get enlightenment, and I'm the fallen one. I'm a lost prodigal son, and there's ways of sacrificing yourself and remembering your pieces that are broken in the descent. We're all kind of spread out in broken pieces everywhere with people we love or difficulties or whatever. And so we have to reassemble this with the idea of the Buddha or the Christ or the Hermes, the sense of I am. And in Tibetan Buddhism, they have the 3 degrees of initiation. They have the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana or the Mantrayana. So this is part and parcel of the foundation stone meditation. The Tibetans have the Hinayana, where or the Theravedic, where I have to get enlightenment. I can't trust you to come back and help me. I have to figure this out for myself. And then the Mahayana is that now that I've gotten a certain stage of self-development, I help others to help myself. I help others to help the world. This is the Mahayana, the great vehicle. And then the Vajrayana is this kind of like making it work no matter what happens. And there's a whole difference between being blessed by the Buddha or the white Tara or the green Tara. It's one thing to be blessed by the deities, they call them, like the deities or total virtuous embodiments of Manjushri, Tara. The Catholic Church has their own version of saints. There's one Christ, but there's hundreds of saints that have different virtues of the one Christ. Well, the Tibetan Buddhists had this earlier. They have the one Buddha, but they have all these different deities that have different virtues. And so it's one thing to be blessed by this knowledge and information and feeling and emotion and insight and creativity, but it's a whole nother thing at the turning point within where we get it and we have this incredible stillness. We have an incredible awakening of compassion for how much suffering takes place in ourselves, in others as we stumble through life. And that we somehow get the Four Noble Truths that turn into the 7 virtues in Tibetan Buddhism, this Prajna, Mahayana, Prajna, Paramitas, are the great Mahayana, the great compassion for everyone who suffers. Mahayana, Prajna is the right view of emptiness. Paramitas, virtues. And this is in the Voice of the Silence. This is in Rudolf Steiner's How to Know the Higher Worlds. This is the relationship of Tibetan Buddhism to the foundation stone. The foundation stone having recollection and remembering, the father and the limb, and then the heart of awareness. And then we have the pure beholding and getting it and rising to the Holy Spirit of thinking from the Christos of the heart. And then the human being gets it and makes this turnaround. So I think the turnaround is when you get enlightenment, when you get an insight and you're living it and you're trying to put it into practice. And if you fall, you get up right away and try to correct things and heal things and re-attune. Instead of atonement, we have attunement. Atonement is at one rather than atone. So Plato thought that when you could see these things for yourself clearly, when you made it your own, when you could shine with it and practice it, this was an attunement and an at-one-ment that would allow us to be co-creative with the wholeness and the stillness within, between everything outside of us and the worlds, the 7 worlds of which we're in the 4th. We're in the heart, between the 3 upper and lower chakras, as we're in the heart of the I Am, between the past 3 earth evolutions and the next 3 earth evolutions. The past being stillness and deep warmth, and then coming to light, and then coming to thinking and will, and then now the I Am. And the next 3 earth evolutions are the community and the beloved community and compassion and the higher intelligence that allows a greater love in the Venus evolution. And then the Vulcan evolution is that we're spiritual fire rather than ignorance and delusion and lost fire of desire or fear. So this is the relationship I see of Tibetan Buddhism with the foundation stone meditation in Rudolf Steiner, is the idea of holding still and meditating, contemplating these ideas and virtues and awakening them within ourselves. I hope that was helpful. Any further question on that?
I think that just about covered it for me.
Thank you. And I hope you get a chance. This is Robert of MayflowerBookshop.com. And I hope that you get a chance to study some books by Gaelic Rinpoche at jewelheart.org, or you get to study Tibetan Buddhism elsewhere, or Rudolf Steiner archives, Rudolf Steiner books from the Mayflower and elsewhere, and Blavatsky's Key to Theosophy, Voice of the Silence. There's some great books, and Isis Unveiled. These things are going out of print, and they're still available at this point now in history. So bless your heart. I hope you get to study Divine Pioneer by Hermes. It's kind of shocking with that and Plotinus's 3 hypostasis that goes into the regeneration and renewal and the ascent to heaven, the same as Divine Pioneer. And this is exactly the same thing as you might say the higher triangle in Kabbalah, the triangle of the Trinity, with the interlaced triangles of descent and ascent in the soul, that the soul is between the arising and the falling, the incarnating and rooting versus the flowering. And then you have like the 4th member as the circle and cross, which is the sigil of the Rosicrucians, and finding yourself at the center of the cross, at the center of the circle and the cross, is to find yourself standing between spirit and matter. And it's a great Holy Grail, Templar, Rosicrucian motif of the Aquarian age that we're moving into, of spiritual community. We're moving from intellect alone that may not have wisdom and compassion to the Aquarian age of compassion. So bless your heart. I hope you enjoyed this last 10 or 11 minutes. And this is Robert of MayflowerBookshop.com. Bless your hearts. Oh, and P.S. Last note. Rudolf Steiner said that Tibetan Buddhism is the purest form of the Atlantean sun oracle. It's the purest form of wisdom from Atlantis. The Native American may have had some too, for sure, and the Celts, for sure. But Tibetan Buddhism is the surviving wisdom of Atlantis. And Steiner talks pretty high about it. This is different than other Buddhisms. And you have to wonder, why is Tibetan Buddhism persecuted by China, and no other Buddhisms or religions are? And I think I told the Dalai Lama that I thought it was because Tibetan Buddhism teaches you to become a Buddha. And then you're walking temple, the head is the temple in your forehead, right? And the two temples, but the third temple, and perhaps the altar, is the heart. The heart is the altar, and the head is the temple. And the head and the will are the two servants, or altar boy and girl, to that altar. And so I wanted to add that the Tibetan Buddhism is the purest form of wisdom. And if the Christians got it, they would know what Jesus said, that ye are gods in the becoming, and that true Christianity it's not gods or ego trips, it's virtues in the becoming, and that the true Christian is like Christ-like, or a God in the becoming, a virtue in the becoming. This is very important. So I wanted to add that, and bless your hearts. If you have questions, send them to Robert of MayflowerBookshop.com. It's MayflowerBookshop.com is the name of the website, which I've mentioned, and you can find me. Bless your heart again. I hope that made sense to you. And feel free to share your ideas.